Hello, hello, hello. You know what? It wasn't meant on purpose, but I feel like we've got matching compatible colors, with the green and the very nice coral that you're wearing. Hi, Viber. Hello.
Hey, nice to see you, and hi to everyone who might be joining us. Great to
Yes.
be here on a hum day.
Yes, I'm very excited about this conversation for so many reasons. So, anyone who's joining us, hi, welcome. Grab a seat, grab whatever you need to be comfortable. We can have a very, very nice, exciting conversation. Something we don't talk enough, in my opinion. So, definitely keen to unpack with you. Conscious that you haven't met Baba just yet. So, I'm going to leave the floor to you, Baba, to introduce yourself, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. I'll do a visual introduction first. So my name is Bai Bajiga. I'm a white woman, got brunette. I'm a brunette, and I'm wearing something a little bit bright today. So I'm wearing a red lipstick and a red, and as Annie said, kind of like coral dress, just to kind of stand out a little bit. Because as you can see, some of you can see that I've got a very beige background, so just to pop a little bit. But so as I mentioned, yeah, my name is Bai Bajiga. I call myself a workplace culture strategist, and I'm also a leadership team coach. So I'm founder and CEO of Lakehouse Consulting, which is an organization through which I provide my services. Other than that, I'm involved in a number of other things, all to do with the topics of diversity and inclusion, workplace culture, education, leadership coaching, and anything along those lines. So that's me, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I am so glad that you're here. Shout out to Maya, who has introduced us. Maybe she's listening, watching this at some point. So there we go. Thank you so much. That's the beauty of, I guess, the internet and LinkedIn and all of that. So definitely excited to talk a little bit more about today's topic, which is all about taking a career break. So if that's okay with you, maybe we can start there, as in, would that be okay to share a bit more about you, in the sense of, how did you ended up taking that career break and the story behind it? Because something we haven't mentioned as well is like, you are definitely someone who does travel. You are live from Spain with us today, and again, I don't want to like influence the way you can answer to this question, so I'll just give the floor back to you.
Okay, so wow, so that question I have to like backtrack it a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah, go
because
for it.
because when you say how did I take the month's break, so maybe perhaps I should state it that I took a month's break back in February, so only a
Yeah.
couple of months ago, for a number of reasons. But the real reason that influenced it was the fact that exactly 3 years ago, I was awarded Employee of the Year at Carnival UK, which is an organization that I used to work for. And so I was awarded a cruise of a choice. And so, because obviously it's a cruise company, holiday and travel company. The problem was that if pandemic hit, and every single cruise that I booked for myself, everything was cancelled. Everything was cancelled. And so I managed to get on that cruise finally 3 years later, almost to the day, 3 years later. And so I really wanted to use the opportunity to go to a place where I hadn't been to. So initially I had booked trips to Japan because I've never been to Japan, and obviously it's amazing to see these locations from the water. But again, unfortunately, that didn't align. But I took a trip from Dubai to Singapore, and Singapore is a country that I hadn't been to, and there were a couple of stops in between as well. But anyway, so that's kind of like a bit of a background story to why I went on that trip in the first place. But I wanted to, on top of that, just take a little bit of extra time off. I knew, obviously, some time ago already, because of this trip was booked, I don't know, like a year in advance. I knew that this would be taking place. So I was already consciously organizing my work in a way where the February would be, there was nothing going on. No one was expecting any responses from me. I was prepping everyone. And I also was consciously was intending to completely switch off on that trip as well, so completely disconnect. So it's also prepping my family and everyone saying, I'm going to be off for like 3 weeks, off internet, all devices. I'm alive, I'm good, but I won't be picking up any messages whatsoever.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that. Sorry for interrupting, but
Please.
this is exactly what I want to discuss and have you experience, because taking a break like yours, like you said, it's not even just about the work side of things, but it's also the personal life as well, especially in the context of, your friends, your family. I don't think we realize it as much, but when you're moving away from your day-to-day life, whatever it means, you realize how much distraction you receive, or how much pressure, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but there is with like the outside world, which is not even the work only, but like your friends, your family. So I love that you took both sides, in consideration. Make sure that you communicated at work and at home. Sorry for interrupting, but I think this is a really important point.
Thank you for echoing and kind of like highlighting that, because it's absolutely true, and because there's so many expectations from us to give someone advice, to show up for someone at this hour and this day. But thankfully, my family's relatively chill. So if I do say, because they're so used to the fact that I'm always somewhere, and I'm not quote unquote home. When my home, I say that, is Latvia. So I'm around maybe a couple of times a year for extended periods of time, but the rest of the time I'm somewhere, and probably most of the time they don't even know where I am, even I've told them 100 times. And so, but yes, just to also, but I do understand that they are my family, and they are low-key always thinking of me and worried about me and wishing me good. And so it is important to let them know that, I won't be available. I'm okay. When I'm ready, I will let you know that I'm okay. But, not necessarily, feel pressured that you need to now like reply to every single email, reply to every single, WhatsApp message, or every single, I don't know, LinkedIn message and those kinds of things. Because I came back to over 500 emails, and that was, I would say, with a relatively well managed and relatively well organized subscriptions and inbox. So but that's part of the thing. So I didn't kind of like, also because I had prepared myself, I didn't feel overwhelmed when I came back to that. So it's also kind of like family, business, but also preparing yourself to
mentally.
I am going to switch off. Yeah. And I am going to come back to a lot of noise. So, let's really surrender to that pause in between.
That's a very interesting point. Yes, 100%. So let's talk about the break itself. I mean, except if there was anything else you wanted to share in terms of preparing for it, but I feel like those three sort of angles seems like definitely important ones to keep in mind.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, because I think, I don't think any of us have got like a real issue with going on a holiday. I think the problem is with us not being able to switch off. So actually with whatever the break is it's a week somewhere, in the sun on the beach, or whether it's like actual like month away somewhere, or month, in your own, four walls of your flat, it doesn't matter. But, we become our own worst enemies in that space, because we're like, oh, I'm on holiday, but then I spend the whole time on my phone or on my emails, and I'm not giving that presence to the people who I'm traveling with, be it your family, your children, and actually to yourself. And as founders, that is so important, because at which point do you create space to recharge, to decompress, to press a pause button, so that because our minds go 100 miles an hour, right? All the time. We have to think about all the things. So just pressing pause to all of that and allowing the world to stand still for a moment, so that we can gather our thoughts and we can invite, our brain to just process all the chaos and all the questions and things that are going on. So because that invites and creates space for new things to happen. And actually coming back is when I really felt, and still am feeling, the real fruit of that trip.
Wow. In what way?
In a number of ways, of course, the first thing is kind of like the physical and mental well-being, that you have been on a break, you have this, because I disconnected from everything. I disconnected from all the digital devices. I didn't look at TV, didn't look at my phone, left my phone away. I was not connected to the internet.
Wow.
Like I was on airplane mode for like 3
Wow.
weeks.
This is actually, oh my God. So yeah, let's talk about that just for a second, 100%. So what did you do? You took everything off, cut all of the distractions for 3 weeks.
Right.
Nice.
No regrets.
Yes, I love it. Because I mean, obviously the reason why I'm so excited as well to have this conversation, and I think some of you in the audience already know that, is that I'm about to go away for a month tomorrow. And so the approach for me is definitely, like you said, I've communicated about it on the professional side of France, personal side of things. And I definitely want to switch off. I mean, to be honest, the island we're going in first for a week said we just don't have Wi-Fi. I mean, not as much. You can barely send a text. So, even if I wanted, I would not be able to be connected, which I don't want to. So that's perfect. But my point is, I still want to, during that trip, still have one opportunity to reach out to my community, because for me it really is important to keep that sort of conversation ongoing. Even though I'm going away, I just want to have that opportunity to share my thoughts, my reflection with them, because I know it can help them as well on their respective journey. And so I had a plan to maybe not log on, open the emails in any way, but just share my thoughts with them. But I definitely want to make sure I stay away, but not necessarily as drastically as going on airplane mode. Now, I just need to go back to you then, because this is what you did. And it looks like, it worked really great. So I want to have your experience. What did you do with those days and this time? What worked for you in that hiatus, if I can call it this way?
Well, first and foremost, probably I consciously made the choice to disconnect, but also I knew how expensive Wi-Fi is on cruise ships. On that particular cruise ship, it costs $25 a day. And, obviously you're in the middle of Indian Ocean, and the internet is shocking anyway. So why would you pay that kind of money? And I'm cheap like that, so I wouldn't pay that kind of money for, no shade to people who do, but I didn't. And so that was one of the reasons. But then again, on the cruise ship, there was quite a few things, to do anyway. You can go and lounge somewhere. There is, more food that you can shake your stick at. There's just everywhere is food. They had organized quite a few cool guest lectures from people across the world. BBC journalist Jane Corbin was on the ship as well, and she was giving a number of lectures during the day. So I joined all of them. So it was I wanted to create a space where I could still have a level of intellectual stimulation, so it wasn't kind of completely switching off my brain. I wanted my brain to still work and to absorb and to talk and to be present, but not do that, and not only do that through digital devices. There's so many other ways of how we can intellectually stimulate ourselves. So and I was just present with people, having 3-hour dinner conversations with people from across the world. It was a very interesting experience. The cruise ship experience, as you can imagine, I'm not necessarily the typical cruise ship demographic in many ways, and so it was a very eye-opening experience for me, and it was exhausting in some ways as well, but it was very beautiful in other ways.
What would you say have been the exhausting part of things and the beautiful part of things? Let's look at both sides.
The exhausting part was probably the fact that, as I mentioned, I'm not the typical cruise industry target audience. There are brands out there who probably I would fit those brands. I don't know, maybe Virgin Cruises, something like that. But on this occasion, I stood out like a sore thumb, and so it was, wherever I would go, the first questions would be, are you a dancer? Are you a singer here? Are you an entertainer here? What are you doing here? Because no one could put together that I could actually be on this ship as a guest. That was first thing.
Okay.
and then because it's kind of like you don't belong here. So even before people would be like, oh, hello, they would be like, are you an entertainer, right? And so that was the first thing. And then the second was that, again, I guess, I don't know, maybe I don't look like a typical Brit or American, because that's a kind of, vast majority of the demographic. And, again, the first thing would be they would come to me before kind of even like saying hello, it would be like, where are you from? As I would be like this like weird creature suddenly like appearing from somewhere, like, where are you from? And I would say, Latvia. I just said Latvia. That was from Latvia, and if they knew where that was, because I don't trust that in some cases it was asked out of space of curiosity, but in many times it wasn't asked from space of curiosity. And then it was, and then the moment they kind of like put Latvia together with, oh, that's kind of like an Eastern European thing. Then it's like, oh, what do you think about Russia? What do you think about Soviet Union? What do you think about Russia's invasion in Ukraine? What do you think about Putin? So I became this Eastern European informant about all current affairs.
Yeah, all the geopolitical. Yeah.
Right, everything. And so that was really, really exhausting. So so often when I went to the dinner, the host already, they knew me very well. And they would come to me and they would go, do you want to sit alone or do you want to sit with someone? And I'd be like, you know what, put me in the kitchen if you need to. I want to sit alone, because all day, you're just answering all of the same questions. So they were amazing with me. But so that was interesting. That was interesting to also kind of like observe myself in real time, observe my identity in real time, observe my sense of belonging in real time. Observe different demographics and kind of like their interests in relation to mine. But at the same time, I allowed myself to, again, decompress from those spaces, because like I said, it could get tiring. But then on the other hand, the probably most positive aspects were the fact that, I could see countries that I had never been to. So, like for instance, Malaysia and Singapore. It was, and I think just the fact that I was safe on the ship, I couldn't just wander somewhere and then disappear, right? Unless I jumped off it, right? As long as I stay on the ship, I'm safe. And so it was nice to leave all the devices away and aside and not even think about them. And then by the time you come back to your room in the evening, you're too tired to even switch on the TV. And actually, I made a mistake where I switched it on one evening, and then, that was a time when I heard all about, the devastating earthquake in Syria and Turkey, and the court case of all the horrendous assaults that this man perpetrated within Met Police in London. And so then I was like, even though I might stand still for a moment, the world is still spinning. So it was interesting also to observe how quickly my nervous system went back up again. And I was like, okay, let's enjoy while we can, and then we will go and pick it up, wherever these current events are when we return. And not feeling guilty about it.
Yes, that's a very good point. I like that. And just on what you shared when it comes to your nervous system, I feel like this is the part I'm the most excited about, because, for example, this week, in the space of less than 4 days, I've had more than 13 hours of coaching calls with all of my clients to make sure they had all of the support they needed from me before I went off. I'm doing, back-to-back conversations, making sure I've got everything lined up for my assistant so she can do her piece while I'm away, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I don't even realize how much I'm doing because I'm just so into it. But then the minute I'm going to take a step back, and then when I'm going to come back, like you said, I'm going to be so run down in terms of like the nervous system, sort of like, stress or anxiety level or whatever it is. Because I'm not feeling stress. I'm just like, there's just a lot going on. I'm like wired. I think wired is the right word. And I'm just really looking forward to that because I will have the opportunity to really take a step back and realize that, oh, this is way too much on my plate here. Like, how can I actually, plan things accordingly? So has this been your experience as well?
Yes, it was the fact that I've got a lot on my plate. I've always known it, but actually, the probably the most kind of like life-changing aspect I think of that month off, because it was kind of like 3 weeks away, but a month off. So even when I came back, I took a week to just acclimatize and before I went back into it 100 miles an hour again. What was the most kind of like life-changing aspect of that was just the ability to create space for your brain to just process everything ultimately, because at that point I didn't fully understand it, but then when I came back to already pre-populated meetings that I had set up for the month of March, because February I had off, and then I realized that actually there is so much where my prime energy goes that doesn't align with me fundamentally, doesn't align with my energy, doesn't align with my purpose, with the impact I want to create. And alignment is the word or the theme that I picked for my 2023. So then it was kind of a bit of like a call to Jesus moment where you're like, okay, let's assess here a little bit, like what's happening. And so very quickly, what happened is that I actually ended up exiting 2 multi-year partnerships. And that's a big thing. And that's and it takes, a lot of courage to do. But then if I hadn't gone away and returned with fresh perspective, I don't think I probably would have seen it, probably would have had the kind of red flag feeling in my gut, but I would have too much to do to react to it appropriately. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And so in retrospect, what has happened, or rather as a result, what has happened is that I have regained and reclaimed my prime energy. And that prime energy right now goes to my projects. It goes to things that I truly care about, that truly create the impact that I want to create. So it was a nice time to realign. And of course, exiting and having those conversations, it was tough. It was unpleasant. It was toxic at times, but it had to be done. And today it's very interesting how within a month those things can change.
So exciting. Ooh, okay. Definitely looking forward to see what's going to happen on the other side, but it's really interesting to hear your perspective. And like we were saying in the beginning, for anyone who's listening to this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take a month away. It could just be even like a long weekend away. Like even here in the UK, where we don't have that many bank holidays, we've got 3 coming up, which is the reason why I'm doing this trip as well right now. So wherever you are, if you've got the opportunity to take even like a long weekend break, I feel like you were saying, by the definitely make sure that you really prepare yourself to switch off, so you can really be in a position to take that step back that we unfortunately don't have enough opportunities to have, because of ourselves, because the way we function, but also because of, like you were saying, the word and how it spins around us in terms of like the social media, the invasion of like the communication, like everything that is out there, definitely doesn't allow us to take that step back and really reflect. So definitely, I love what you said, because I feel like without those essential moments in our life, we will not be in a position to take the right decision for us. Like you were saying, the fact that you came back, you realized that you had to refocus where your energy was going. Without stopping, you can't know whether or not your energy is in the right place. So thank you so much for sharing that. Any other major either like takeaways or things that have changed as a result of taking this break?
I value my time. I have changed my relationship with my time, and I realized that, and I think we all know it, in some ways, but that I don't need to be staring at my laptop 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day to get things done, but actually breaking the tasks down in smaller digestible ways, and you do something and then you take a break, or you work in the morning and take a break during the day, and then you come back and do a little bit of kind of like late afternoon or, you know, early evening, and then you have evening to yourself, and you still end up, you know, working the same hours, but probably doing more and better quality work, while also being relaxed, having done, you know, life admin that we all need to do, be it, you know, looking after our kids or cleaning our house or doing laundry or cooking, whatever it might be. You know, I feel that my like work life is more integrated now, that it doesn't feel like, okay, work ends, now I can crash. You don't end up enjoying your life as well. And, you know, as you mentioned at the very, very beginning, I travel quite a bit right now. You know, I'm in Spain, beautiful country. You know, have I explored it as much as I would like to? Probably not, but I'm definitely much more conscious about my surroundings and how I spend my time, and how I kind of like immerse myself in my surroundings and just be present with it.
Very nice. I know obviously the title of today is about, you know, best practices and lessons learned, and I feel like you already shared plenty. I know we've got only 5 minutes left. I feel like this conversation has gone for like 10 minutes, but anyway, that's my relationship with time. So looking forward to assess my relationship with time when I'm going away. Any final words that you want to share for anyone who is potentially considering taking a career break, they don't necessarily know how to take it or what to expect, or any final thoughts? Not food.
I think regardless of whether it's an actual career break or whether it's just a kind of little pause, I think, well, first and foremost, know that you deserve it, and you're worth of a break, and it's okay to take it, and you will reap the benefits of it later. Trust me, you will. You don't see it today, you don't see it right now, but you will. And you do need to allow yourself to take those breaks, to take those sabbaticals, you know, whatever you need to do to attend yourself and to allow your brain to process, because we live in such information overload today that there is a lot. We are bombarded constantly with messages here, emails there, you know, news stories, something else happening in the background, and we are just overloaded. And so we just need to take care of ourselves by allowing our brain just to process all that, and so that we can create space for even better things to come. And an interesting thing is that, you know, when I mentioned that I exited 2 multi-year partnerships because they were weighing me down, and I just remember when I exited them, I kind of like went from this hunchback to kind of like, okay, there's like a whole weight that has lifted off my shoulders. And so of course it makes you reflect, you know, how do I not end up there, you know, going forward? But it's just what it also did, it within the period of the first 2 weeks after I kind of like let it go, was I received more incoming business from like LinkedIn, second degree connections, and all kinds of places that I had in this year in total.
Wow.
And so, and of course, it's like, do we have capacity to even take that much on? That's, you know, the conversation is not about that. The thing is that because I let go of something that didn't serve me and actually was harmful, I have created space now to work on things and with companies that better align with myself. And I have also allowed myself to receive those things rather than just always like going, getting, hunting, grabbing, hustling. It's all very kind of like masculine energy in which we, as you know, women founders especially, that we live in. So yeah, live in kind of like in more kind of like feminine space where you also know how to receive, and what that looks like is so powerful.
Oh, I love it. Perfect. Any final recommendation that you want to share with me before I go off tomorrow?
When you say that you're going to disconnect.
Yes.
Just like eliminate any kind of blue lights, TVs, anything that you can, and just be present with yourself and see what comes to you. Comfortable, uncomfortable, just stick with it.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you shared your story, Baiba. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.